All right, people. Welcome back to Music and Moonsaults. And I have a very special guest with me today. He's been one of my best friends for, like 30 years now, dude. We're old.
We're getting there.
Darrell is with me today, rocking the Bullet Club t-shirt. Darrell, how's it going, man?
Not too bad. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. Just got home from work.
Good.
So that's over with, and just ready to talk some wrestling with one of my buddies.
One of my major, I don't want to say major, my most watched matches I've ever, most replayed matches.
Yeah, it's I haven't watched, so before I watched it, and actually I watched it twice back to back the other night, just to make sure I didn't miss anything, because it's been, I wouldn't say that I've like sworn off any CM Punk matches, but I just haven't gone on my way to watch any Punk matches, since he left, just because it's just whatever, you know.
And here I'm the biggest mark for both of the wrestlers that you can get. So
there you go. But this is a phenomenal match. So this is the Wrestling Wayback Machine number 9, and we're talking the John Cena versus CM Punk WWE Championship match from Money in the Bank 2011 that took place at the Allstate Arena in Chicago, Illinois on July 17th, 2011. Before we get into everything, please leave a thumbs up on the video. And if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe. Get me up to 100 subscribers by October, and I will be reviewing the very first Taylor Swift album with Jeremy Lambert in October. So that's a little teaser for you, a little a carrot at the end of the rope to kind of entice you, because if you know me, Taylor Swift not exactly my thing, but for you people to get me to my goal, I will do that for you. And then you can follow me on Twitter at IbanezChris, over on Facebook, facebook.com/musicandmoonsaults, anchor.fm/Christopher-Bordine5 for audio, if that's more your speed. But yeah, so, and it's cool because we're recording this on the 10-year anniversary of the promo that started this whole story, which is kind of cool. So 10 years ago, today is the 27th of June, and it was the Pipebomb Promo by Punk, where he sat on the stage and kind of just let it all out off his chest right there on the ramp. So we're trying to remember, were you on the road still at this time?
Yes, I was on the road at this time. Yeah.
Okay.
I did. My roommate at the time also happened to be a huge wrestling fan.
Okay.
So I was able to see it live, and
oh, nice.
We just both kind of look at each other's jaw dropped and a couple exclamations, and it was just like, did that just happen?
Right. I did not see it live because at this time, I did not have. I was too poor to pay for cable or internet at the time, because of my situation. I'll just leave it at that. Darrell knows what I'm talking about. So what I was doing is I was having my dad record Raw on a videotape on Mondays, and then I would pick it up Tuesday and come home and watch it. And for whatever reason, I was kind of like, I was always watching, but I was going through like ups and downs in my fandom around this time, because my favorite wrestler is Shawn Michaels. The year before he gets retired, so so at that point I'm kind of like, oh, okay. Then they do this hot angle with the Nexus, and I was all into that, and then they kind of killed that. I'm like, oh, okay. And then they had CM Punk be the new leader of the Nexus, which I was all into because I was a big CM Punk fan at the time as well. And then that kind of just ruined that as well, which brings us to this point on this night, Cena had just won back the WWE title. I believe at the previous pay-per-view, which was, I want to say it was Capital Carnage or Capital Punishment or something like that. Or maybe he won it at the one before. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah,
but
it was like a one-off
yeah,
pay-per-view things.
Yeah, he won it. You know, he lost to Miz at WrestleMania, but then wins it back shortly thereafter. We'll leave it at that. So on this night, there was a number one contenders match. I want to say it was a triple threat match. I have no idea who else was in the match. I don't remember. I didn't go back and look. But Punk wins. And afterwards, he announces that his contract expires the day of Money in the Bank and that he's going to win the title and then walk out of the company with the belt. And then later that night, he attacks Cena, who had like a hardcore match or a tables match or something. He attacks Cena, cuts the Pipebomb promo where he, runs down Vince McMahon, everyone from Vince McMahon to The Rock to Triple H and Stephanie to John Laurinaitis. He just lays waste to everybody on the microphone. And here we are. And there's some back and forth. Vince tries suspending Punk, and then he gets Cena,
John wants him reinstated.
Yeah, Cena makes Vince reinstate him because he's like, this is what the people want. He's trying to do the babyface thing, even though half the crowd's booing him all the time anyway. And he's like, these people, this is the match that people want. So Vince reinstates Punk and adds the caveat that if Cena loses and Punk does in fact walk out with the belt, then John Cena's fired.
You gotta say it right. You're
fired. Yeah, exactly. And all the while Vince is trying to negotiate on screen and off screen with Punk, trying to get him to re-sign. And on screen he's not successful. We'll come to find out that off screen he was. But so that leads us to here. The main event. It's in Punk's hometown of Chicago. And this it's just a great match. The atmosphere is, last month I talked about the John Cena RVD match from One Night Stand, and this is almost at that same level. It's not quite as even though it's in Punk's hometown, it's not quite as one-sided as that One Night Stand crowd was, because you do see some Cena fans. You do hear some "Let's Go Cena" chants during the course of the match, but it's pretty much, I would say it's probably at least 75-25 in favor of Punk here.
Yeah, it reminded me off the bat of a night after WrestleMania.
Yeah,
just that atmosphere of it.
It was very similar, very similar. So Punk comes out first, and everyone talks, about the Cult of Personality theme for good reason. That's a great song. I've long loved that song even before Punk was using it. It's an oldie but a goodie. But this theme here from the Kill Switch Engage theme is a banger as well. I like this theme very, very much. So Punk comes out and just the crowd is hyped. He's sitting in the middle of the ring, just taking it all in, talking to his friends and family in the front row and stuff like that. And then
I love that. The camera was at every single angle not to show Colt Cabana.
They tried. Yeah, they tried all they could do not to show him. A couple times they weren't successful, but they tried very hard not to show him.
Yeah, I mean, at one time during the match, I think Jerry Lawler even said he's slapping hands with hands with his fans or something like that. It's like, oh, that's kind of his best friend at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the time, yeah, in better times. So then Cena comes out, and I liked his demeanor here. Normally, when Cena would come out, he'd stand at the top of the ramp and talk to the camera and do the salute and show his towel and then run to the ring. This time he just walked. He didn't run. He walked, made a beeline right to the ring. No salute, no nothing. They even make a mention of that on commentary that there's no salute tonight, from Cena. And he gets in the ring, and this, unlike One Night Stand, he finds a fan in the front row. He can throw his shirt to that won't throw it back. So that's good. And
I like the guy that held up the Cena meet Cena sign in the front row, because and honestly, from a distance, he did look just like Cena.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I think Michael Cole did actually a really good job here at the beginning of selling the importance of the title and running down the lineage of all the legends that have held the title, and putting over the fact that it could all go away if Punk wins and walks out. So they kind of start the match and exchange some holds and stuff, and the crowd is chanting, "You can't wrestle." And there's a point where Punk stops, and he's like, "Who, me?" And the crowd starts saying no, and then he points at Cena, and they go, "Yeah," and he goes, "Okay, I'm just checking." I thought that was really funny. Again, Michael Cole gets a lot of flack, and sometimes rightfully so. But I think he did a pretty good job in this match. A lot of times they try to ignore, history and stuff like that, but they make mention of the fact that Punk was part of Cena's entrance at WrestleMania 22 in this very same building. And then I'm not especially in this era, I am not a fan of Jerry Lawler on commentary. I thought he had well past jumped the shark at this point. He didn't really add anything to me. But he does make a good point, kayfabe wise about, maybe it wasn't such a good idea for Vince to put all this extra pressure on Cena of, if you don't win this match, you're fired.
I mean, just going into this match too, the storyline that they built up for it.
Yeah.
Not to like really narc on today's product, but I mean, you don't see storylines like that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and Jerry Lawler it's like, well, you put that pressure on John Cena now. Is John Cena gonna be Big Max John like he always is, or
or is he
gonna happen?
Yeah. And that kind of plays into the finish of the match too once we get there. Like I said, there are some "Let's Go Cena" chants. They announced there's 13,815 people in the crowd. And then Punk throws Cena outside. This is where you mentioned he's slapping hands with Colt and stuff like that. And
now that first time he got thrown out, or before he got thrown outside, Punk had Cena on the ring apron. Cena was handing off, and Punk went to do a knee to the back of the neck.
Yes.
And at the time, we're both younger, everything else. So you just are like, oh my God, you just hit him back in the neck. But you can see right now, after, years of watching wrestling, they had the wrong camera angle when Punk totally missed Cena.
Yeah.
In the back of the neck.
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't even pay attention to that. So it still worked with me. So
they showed on replays for the behind the angle, behind Punk's back, so it looks like they actually hit him. But the actual live angle, you can just see like missed by 6-8 inches of Cena's neck, and kind of just like, yeah, all right. He was doing what he was supposed to do, just the wrong camera angle.
Right. Punk hits they get back in the ring. Punk hits like a springboard twisting crossbody.
Yep.
And then Cena kind of starts favoring his knee a little bit.
And I had that written down on my notes too. Do you think that was supposed to be a roll through and John pick him up?
I don't think so, because they did that spot later in the match.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think they were just trying to kind of add a little something, add a little bit more doubt into, is John going to be able to pull this off because he's got this, now he's got
Knee
this
injury.
knee that's kind of bugging him. And then Cena suplexes Punk off the apron back down to the floor, which was really, really a cool spot. Didn't see Cena especially doing a lot of stuff like that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And by this point, we're already like over 13, almost 14 minutes into this match. So there's just a lot of really good action early. They get back in the ring, and Cena hits like a modified AA into a power slam type thing. And then he puts Punk in a abdominal stretch, but Punk rakes the eyes to escape. And then they do a double drop down spot at like 17:15. So Punk goes to hit one of his running high knees in the corner and misses. And then Cena goes in to do the 5-knuckle shuffle. But Punk kicks him in the face when he's doing the "You Can't See Me" taunt. And then this is when he throws Cena back outside and hits the suicide dive at about the 18:35 mark. And that was a big spot in this match, was that dive.
Yes. And that's when I noticed because again, he did it right in front of his family and friends right there. He literally looked up on his mom and was like, I'm okay.
Yeah. Punk goes for like a clothesline off the top and misses. Cena does hit the 5-knuckle shuffle. Goes for an AA, but Punk counters. Punk goes for a go to sleep, but Cena counters it into a gut wrench suplex, which was a cool spot.
Yep.
And then Cena goes for another AA, but Punk like kind of gets him over to the ropes and then hits 2 of the running knees while Cena is like propped up against the ropes.
And that one, I think it was the second one. Really connected.
He made up for that neck spot.
Yeah, they show a slow motion. It's like, ooh, that was actual connection.
Gotta lay that in there, dude. Gotta lay it in. And then he hits the bulldog after that, and then the springboard clothesline from the outside back in and gets a near fall. But then Cena locks in the STF.
Yep.
At about 22:51, but Punk gets to the ropes. And it's really, again, just really a lot of back and forth action here. This is where Punk hits a crossbody, but then that's when Cena rolls through for an AA. But,
I liked before that crossbody and roll through. Cena again, outside of his character, really, went to the top rope, and then Punk almost like countered into a power bomb.
Oh,
right there.
Yeah. I thought that was later, but yeah, it was around here. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Where am I at here? Yeah, they do the roll through. He attempts another go to sleep. Cena counters into the STF. Punk gets to the ropes. Cena pulls him back to the center. And then Punk counters back into the Anaconda Vice. And they're trading holds. And I think Punk's doing a really good job. Well, both guys are really doing a good job of showing that Cena can indeed wrestle. But Punk is almost like matching him move for move here. And then Cena finally hits an AA, but only gets a 2 count. And then I think this is when he attempts the first top rope leg drop, but then Punk counters into the power bomb for the 2 count. Then Punk tries for a GTS. Cena gets to the ropes. Cena hangs Punk on the top rope, and then he goes back up and this time he hits the top rope leg drop across the back of Punk's neck and gets a 2 count out of that. Cena hits a second AA at 29:43, but Punk kicks out at 2 again, and this is when Cena starts showing some frustration. He's complaining to the ref, like, come on, that was 3, which is giving Punk a little bit of time to recover. He goes over, he puts Punk on the rope, on the top rope, and he's going to try for a super AA off the second rope, but Punk hits him with a bunch of elbows to the skull and then hits a top rope, or maybe it was a second rope Frankensteiner. So,
yep.
And then we're really getting into the finish here. Punk finally hits a GTS, but Cena falls out of the ring, which is really good. It does, they did a really good job of. I think they really put over the GTS in this match. Cena didn't kick out. He ended up rolling out of the ring. And I think the only other one that Punk hit is the one that finishes the match here in a little bit. But
correct. And I had that too. He hit that, rolled out of the ring. The only other outside the finisher, other one he hit was it connected in the ribs. It didn't connect underneath the jaw.
Oh, that's right. You're right. So he goes out, he gets Cena, gets him back in the ring, and then this is when Vince and John Laurinaitis come out, and we're at the 32-minute, 35-second mark here, and this causes a distraction, which is so played out now. Like, they do it so much now, it's ridiculous. But it was effective here because of the story leading in. And it wasn't like a huge, it was just like a Punk looking back and seeing these two guys and thinking, oh God, what's going to happen? But it's just enough of a distraction that he gets back in and Cena gets him back in the STF. And then Vince sends Johnny down to try and get the bell ring, do another screw job here, because we can't think of anything else to do other than rehash the Montreal screw job over and over again.
And I know the commentators mentioned that at one point during the match, and actually that's the first thing after rewatching the match. For the first time, I watched it maybe twice leading up to this podcast. The first time we were probably 10-minute mark in, and I was like, man, this is almost like the Montreal screw job. And it wasn't 30 seconds later that someone mentioned, it was like, oh, this is a Montreal screw job. And
I will say, of all the times that they've either flat out redone it or, alluded to it or whatever, this one makes the most sense because it's almost, this time it's in a kayfabe scenario where, a guy is leaving as champion, whereas the screw job, Brett was actually on his way out the door as champion. So at least this kind of made sense why they would play into that. But again, it's one of those things where they do it so much in other scenarios where it kind of loses its effectiveness. But anyways, so Vince sends Johnny down, try and ring the bell, but Cena, and I don't know how Cena saw it. This would be my one critique, because he wasn't facing them, but somehow he had like this sixth sense that Johnny's coming down to the ring, and so he releases the hold and runs out and decks Laurinaitis. And I'm like, there's no way Cena saw him yet. So that was the one thing where I was like, that could have been just a little bit better, but not enough to ruin the match by any means. But so then Cena goes face, not right in Vince's face, but he's yelling at Vince in the aisleway, like, basically, win or lose, or lose, this is going to take place. This is going to go down in the ring here. And then Cena gets back in the ring and runs right into a GTS, and then Punk gets the 1, 2, 3 33 minutes, 43 seconds. Punk is your new WWE champion. John Cena is fired, which, again, is like the second time in like a year he had been fired, because back during the Nexus angle the previous fall, they had a thing where if he was a special guest referee in a Randy Orton Wade Barrett title match, and if Barrett didn't win the title, Cena was fired.
He's fired.
And Orton won, so they fired him. And I don't even remember how he got his job back that time. But yeah, so they fire him.
And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, even after this, he was back on Raw like that next night.
It wasn't the next night. It was, I think it was the week after.
The week after, or yeah. And then they just brought out a brand new belt. And nothing never happened.
We'll get there because I want to talk about the aftermath of this too, because I think they kind of bungled that a little bit too, as they're prone to do. So Vince then goes down and grabs Jerry Lawler's headset and calls for Del Rio, who had won the Raw Money in the Bank match earlier this night. And I did like that Del Rio came running down without music. To try and kind of maybe sneak up on Punk. Doesn't work. Punk sees him coming, gives him a kick to the head, and he scurries out of the ring and hops on the barricade and is sitting on the barricade, blows Vince a kiss, and out through the crowd he goes. And that's how we go off the air. Later that night, he posts a photo of the title in his fridge, which is kind of a famous thing. And like, it's cool because, he's not on Raw the next night. And I know
in real life, isn't this where he married April?
No, he didn't. No, him and AJ don't get married until after he's left.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't get married till after he leaves the company.
Yeah, for some reason I thought this was when they were taken off to get married.
No, he just was, because they needed to sell it, because they had, even though he really did resign. And that was kind of the cool thing, is like, we're, kind of left to wonder and assume. Like, I assumed because they let him win the title that he had resigned, but you didn't know if it was like a long-term thing or if it was like a, hey, we'll have you win the title, then you just, add another month to your contract and then drop it and then you can be done. Because I know they've done that before. I think when Jeff Hardy left in 2009, like his contract was supposed to be up like in like July, and they signed an extension and he won the title and then dropped it to Punk at SummerSlam. But so you mentioned the next night, but no, yeah. So Punk he went to a Cubs game and did the 7th inning stretch with the belt, and he's making a few appearances around town, but not really anything of super serious. So they do a tournament for a new champion because they're like, we'll just make a new WWE title, we'll just not even acknowledge that, and we'll, start fresh.
Yep.
And so I think they had I think it was a 4-person tournament. And they had the 2 semifinal matches the next night. And I know Ray was one of the finalists. I don't remember who the other one was. Might have been Miz. I don't know. And then the following week, to open the show, is when Ray wins the title. Now, so then Triple H comes out and says that the board of directors have spoken and they reinstate John Cena. So then Cena challenges Ray for later that night for a WWE title match. And Cena beats Ray in the main event of that show.
Yeah.
And here's where I think they really screwed up. A, they brought Cena back too soon. But B, on top of that, Cena wins the title from Ray, and then this is when we hear Cult of Personality for the first time. And it starts, and, everyone's like, what's going on? It takes, it plays for a while before Punk makes his presence known, and he comes, and he's got his title, and the crowd's going crazy, and he gets in the ring, and him and Cena are face to face, and the show goes off the air with them like trading, like in opposite corners, each taking turns raising the belt and having their music played. I remember that, but I felt it then, and I feel it even stronger now. They rushed this whole thing, and I get they wanted to get, have the title, unification match at SummerSlam, which is what they ended up doing. I get that, but at the same time, you gotta let things breathe. You can't just hot shot stuff like this. It would have been a good month at least for me of not having Punk on TV. What say you?
And I agree with that. I mean, the longer it would have stretched out, the more it's like, well, maybe he did leave. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the time there was like dirt sheets and stuff like that, but it wasn't like it is now where, something happens and boom, we instantly know it.
Right.
It's like it was more, it's like, oh, maybe he did leave. Maybe he's like, are we going to see him on,
well,
not TNT,
TNA. In his Pipebomb promo, he mentions New Japan and Ring of Honor. Maybe we'll see him. I might have even let him go and do that. Like, maybe not wrestle a match, but show up at least. Add some. The more you can add credibility to the story, the better off. Like, I don't know. I just felt like they kind of dropped the ball on the aftermath of this. So.
No, I agree with that, 100%.
But that doesn't take away what an awesome match it is. Like I said, I watched it twice back to back the other night, and it didn't take away my enjoyment. I could go watch it again right now and still enjoy it. So yeah.
I watched it earlier this week, and then I came home, got done with work today about noon, came home and watched it naturally. My wife sat down and watched it with me because she was a John Cena fan.
Uh-huh.
After the match, she even she'll watch wrestling maybe once, twice a year.
Yeah.
And after this match, she actually goes like, that was a damn good match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah. No, it is. It's up there for sure. It probably is in my, I don't know, top 10 matches of all time. Like, it's that good. Mm-hmm. And the two of them just had a really good chemistry. They would go on and have, I don't remember the SummerSlam match of this year being that great, but then they would go on later when Punk is in the middle of his super long championship reign. Towards the end of it, when he kind of turns heel, they have a couple. Well, the match where Cena cashes in Money in the Bank on Raw 1000, that's a really good match. The match at Night of Champions, I want to say 2012. In Chicago, which ends in like a draw or something like that. That's a really good match. So, they have a really good chemistry together.
It's like you just like, chemistry. That's all it is.
Yep.
So.
Darrell, any other thoughts?
No, it was a good match, great match. Easily could have been a main eventer at WrestleMania.
Uh-huh.
And just rock the place, especially after that, which will never happen again. But if that WrestleMania was in Chicago,
right. Yeah.
But it was, like I said, I'm a big fan of both of them. Still am.
Yeah, at this time I was not a Cena fan at all. I was very anti-Cena. I've come to
I remember that.
Yes, I've come to have an appreciation for him now. That I was like, oh, you know what? He was good at what he did at the time, and I'm actually looking forward. If the rumors are true and he ends up coming back for SummerSlam this year, I'm looking forward to that. And I was a big Punk fan at the time. And I've
I say if he comes back, it would have to be Bobby Lashley now, because Edge came back and facing Roman Reigns now.
That's taking place at Money in the Bank. So.
Oh, that's Money in the. I thought they stretched out to SummerSlam.
No, they already announced it. It's for Money in the Bank. So.
Okay.
So we're still good. We'll still
All
good
right.
for Cena.
We still got a chance.
Cena Roman. So, but all right, Darrell, you want to give out I got your Twitter handle on the screen, but if you want to
tell you the truth, I don't even know it. So.
Okay. You gotta adjust that, man. It's Darrell with a bunch of numbers after.
Yeah, and I've tried to look at it, but I'm not very tech friendly or anything like that. And I basically have my social media right now for me coaching football here locally.
Yeah.
So after that, yeah.
Yeah, Darrell coaches youth, middle school and high school football and stuff like that. So, yeah. All right, man. Well,
so it's been a pleasure, and I thank you. First ever time sitting down on a podcast with you, so yes. I appreciate this.
I'm glad you reached out, you responded to my tweet and said you'd come on. That was like, yeah,
into my best two boys. Come on.
Yeah. Well, and then I got Matt, like, what the hell? And I'm like, dude, you just got back. You're just like, he wasn't even back from vacation yet. I'm like, you're gonna be just coming back from vacation. And then it actually turns out that it ended up being good that he didn't, because they had some stuff some family stuff happen this weekend.
I seen that. Yeah, which is hard.
Yeah. So, but all right, man, it's been a pleasure.
All right, thank you, sir.
No problem. Thank you. I'll talk to you later. Yep. And all the rest of you out there, see ya.